You're walking through a forest, minding your own business, and suddenly the whole place explodes. Birds scatter in every direction. A deer locks eyes with you, freezes completely, then vanishes like its life depends on it because it thinks it does. A squirrel stops, starts, stops again, running some kind of internal panic program just because you showed up. And here's the thing that should make you stop and think. These animals have claws, venom, horns, speed, and survival instincts sharpened over millions of years of evolution. You're a soft, slow, mostly hairless creature eating a granola bar. So why are they terrified of you? Why do creatures that are objectively more dangerous than us treat our presence like an incoming disaster? The answer isn't simple, and it isn't obvious. It reaches back further than you'd ever expect into deep evolutionary history, animal psychology, and the hidden forces that shape entire ecosystems. And once you understand it, you'll never look at a spooked animal the same way again. If you find it fascinating to understand how nature really works, you're going to want to stick around for everything coming up. Hit that like button, drop a comment, telling me about a time an animal reacted to you like you were the most dangerous thing it had ever seen, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Here's something that might make you a little uncomfortable. The fear that animals have of humans didn't start when we invented guns. It didn't start with agriculture, or fire, or any tool we ever built. It started millions of years ago, long before we were even fully human, and it's been building ever since. Scientists have a name for it, the landscape of fear. It's the idea that prey animals don't just react to a predator standing right in front of them, they organize their entire lives around the possibility of one showing up, where they sleep, where they drink water, when they move, what areas they avoid. All of it is constantly calculated around one single question: is something out there that can kill me? And for a very long time, that something was us. Our early ancestors were persistence hunters. We weren't fast, we couldn't outrun a deer or overpower a gazelle, but we had something far more terrifying. We simply never stopped. Paleolithic humans would chase prey for hours under the brutal heat of the midday sun, at a steady, relentless pace until the animal collapsed from total exhaustion. If you were a gazelle on the open savanna and you spotted a bipedal silhouette jogging towards you in the distance, that was one of the most horrifying things your brain could register. So animals learned, not individually, but generationally. The ones that didn't flee from human-shaped figures got eaten. The ones that ran survived, reproduced, and passed that instinct down to their offspring. Generation after generation, that pattern repeated itself until the fear stopped being a choice and became something else entirely. It wasn't a learned behavior anymore. It was a survival algorithm written directly into their DNA. And what that means for how animals experience our presence today goes even deeper than you'd expect. Now, if what we just covered made you uneasy, this next part is going to hit even harder. In 2016, a team of researchers at the University of Western Ontario ran a study that quietly changed the way scientists think about humans in the animal kingdom. They went out into the wild and played audio recordings to various animals. Not roaring lions, not howling wolves. Just people talking. Casual, ordinary conversation. The kind you'd hear waiting at a bus stop on a Tuesday morning. The results were unlike anything they expected. Mountain lions fled at more than twice the rate they fled from any other predator. Deer, bobcats, skunks, raccoons, every single species bolted faster and harder from the sound of human voices than from any other threat they were tested against. The human voice alone triggered a fear response stronger than anything else in the natural world. Let that sink in for a second. Think about what a mountain lion actually is. It's an apex predator. An animal that hunts deer for breakfast, moves through terrain like a ghost, and has no natural enemies. And it was running away, panicking from the sound of someone casually chatting about their weekend plans. That's not a minor reaction. That's a deep, primal fear response that no amount of physical power could override. And the reason comes back to history. We hunted apex predators too. We pushed them out of their habitats. We killed them when they came too close to our livestock. Over enough generations, even the top of the food chain learned that humans mean danger. But it's not just that we're predators. Plenty of animals are predators. What makes us different, what makes us uniquely terrifying, is that we are completely unpredictable. And in the animal kingdom, unpredictability isn't just scary. It's the scariest thing there is. Here's where it gets really interesting. Animals aren't just reacting to danger, they're constantly reading patterns. Every predator in the natural world operates on a recognizable system. Wolves hunt at dawn and dusk. Crocodiles strike near the water's edge. Hawks circle open fields looking for small mammals. These patterns aren't random, and prey animals have spent millions of years learning to decode them. They know when to move, where to drink, which areas to avoid, and when. The landscape of fear is actually a highly organized survival map built around predictable threats. And then there's us. We hunt in the morning and at night. We hunt alone and in groups of hundreds. We use fire traps, spears, rifles, drones, helicopters, boats, and nets. We hunt on land, in water, from the air. We hunt animals we eat, animals we don't eat, and sometimes animals we don't even want, just because we can. There is no pattern to decode, no schedule to memorize, no safe zone to calculate around a human presence. Wildlife biologists call this the failure of predator recognition. Every animal brain has a built-in threat library, a set of calibrated responses for specific categories of danger. But humans don't fit any category cleanly. We smell wrong, we move wrong, we make sounds that don't follow any natural logic. And then, completely without warning, we sit down and spend 20 minutes feeding pigeons like we're harmless. From the perspective of any wild animal, we are a glitch in the system, a variable that cannot be solved, cannot be predicted, and cannot be safely ignored. And when an animal's survival brain encounters something it genuinely cannot process, the only rational response is total, permanent avoidance. But what happens when that avoidance starts reshaping entire ecosystems? That's where this story takes a turn you probably weren't expecting. But here's the question that flips everything we've covered completely upside down. If this fear is so deeply wired into animal DNA, so ancient and so powerful, what happens when you remove the humans entirely? What happens in places where our species never showed up or disappeared long enough for the memory to fade? The answer is one of the most quietly remarkable things in all of wildlife science. When Charles Darwin arrived at the Galapagos Islands, he expected wild animals to behave the way wild animals always behaved around humans. Instead, they just sat there. Birds landed on his shoulders. Marine iguanas refused to move from his path. He actually pushed iguanas into the ocean, and they swam back and settled right beside him. He wrote about it with genuine confusion, because nothing in his experience had prepared him for animals that simply had no fear response to a human presence. The same thing plays out in Antarctica today. Penguins approach researchers with open curiosity, inspect equipment, waddle directly into camps like they own the place. In protected marine reserves, fish swim toward divers rather than away from them, while fish in unprotected zones nearby flee instantly. And then there's the dodo. Sailors who encountered them thought they were simply too stupid to run, but they weren't stupid at all. They had just never been given a reason to be afraid. Nobody had ever taught them that a bipedal silhouette meant death. And that's the philosophical gut punch hiding inside all of this. Fear isn't a factory setting. It's not hardwired from birth. It's installed by experience, reinforced by survival, and passed down through generations of consequence. When humans stop being a threat, the fear dissolves. Sometimes within just a few generations, the entire survival map rewrites itself. Which raises a question that goes even deeper than the biology one about what kind of presence we actually choose to be in the natural world. Most people think the wolves changed Yellowstone by killing deer. And yes, they did kill deer, but that's actually the smaller part of the story. When wolves were reintroduced into Yellowstone in 1995, something far more profound happened. The deer didn't just decrease in number, they changed their entire behavior. They stopped grazing in open valleys. They avoided riverbanks. They moved differently, rested differently, spread differently across the landscape. It wasn't the teeth of the wolf that reshaped the ecosystem, it was the fear of them. And the chain reaction that followed was staggering. Vegetation recovered in areas that hadn't seen healthy plant growth in decades. Riverbanks stabilized. Trees grew back. Bird species returned. Fish populations recovered. The rivers themselves literally changed their physical course because fear had changed where animals moved, and that changed everything that depended on them. Scientists gave this a name, the ecology of fear. And once you understand it, you can never look at a quiet forest the same way again. Now apply that exact same logic to us. A 2018 study published in the journal Science analyzed mammal behavior across 6 continents and found something that should genuinely stop you in your tracks. Mammals worldwide had become significantly more nocturnal, specifically in response to human presence. Not habitat destruction, not noise pollution, just humans being nearby. Our simple presence alone was enough to reprogram the sleeping schedules of wildlife across the entire planet. And here's the part that's hardest to sit with. Because animals flee and hide so efficiently, we almost never see the full scale of what our presence actually does. We walk through a forest, hear birds, feel the peace of it, and interpret the quiet as harmony. But that stillness isn't always nature at rest. Sometimes it's nature in hiding, and the difference between those two things matters more than most of us have ever been asked to consider. Here's something that quietly rewrites the whole picture. Fear, as powerful and ancient as it is, isn't actually permanent. The animal brain is efficient above all else, and if a threat consistently fails to materialize, the brain eventually files it under waste of energy and moves on. That's exactly what happens with urban pigeons and raccoons. Repeated exposure to humans with no negative consequence gradually dissolves the fear response. The survival program doesn't disappear, it just gets deprioritized when the data no longer supports it. But crows took this to a completely different level. They don't just habituate, they individualize. Research has shown that crows recognize specific human faces, remember who harmed them, and actively recruit other crows to harass that particular person for years. They didn't just learn to tolerate humans, they developed an entire cultural system of human surveillance. That's not instinct anymore. That's something much closer to social intelligence built directly around us. In Rwanda and Uganda, mountain gorilla habituation programs have demonstrated something genuinely moving. Groups that once fled from rangers in pure panic have, over years of careful and respectful work, learned to tolerate human presence, and some appear to have grown genuinely comfortable with it. In rewilded areas where hunting and human disturbance have been removed, animals slowly reclaim their natural behaviors. Daytime grazing returns, open spaces get used again. The hypervigilance relaxes one generation at a time. So the next time a squirrel freezes and stares at you like you've just ended its world, that's not drama. That's a survival program hundreds of thousands of years in the making, running exactly as designed. It doesn't know you're just eating a granola bar and enjoying the view. And that gap between what we are and what animals have learned to expect from us is exactly where the most important question in this whole conversation lives. If you made it all the way here, something in this story spoke to you, and that's not an accident. Understanding why animals fear us isn't just a science lesson. It's an invitation to see our place in the natural world with completely different eyes. The way a deer runs, the way a bird goes silent, the way an entire ecosystem reorganizes itself around our footsteps. It all means something. And now, you know what? If this video shifted something in you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss what comes next. Comment "I see it now" below, because if you genuinely felt something watching this, that comment matters more than you think. And don't forget to leave a like. It tells us this kind of content is worth going deeper on. There is so much more to explore. Animal behavior, the hidden science of nature, the stories that change how you see the living world. All of it is coming. The next video is already on your screen. Don't stop here.